Some Legend of Zelda hot takes, a trip through the first 10, 11-ish years of Nintendo, and we talk about Super Mario Bros. 2 on the NES and on the Nintendo Switch Online service. Let's do some Nintendo therapy. Hello, and welcome to episode 16 of Nintendo Therapy, a show about the latest Nintendo news and rumors, as well as a celebration of all things Nintendo. I am Kevin, and with me this week is Sean and Harrison. How you doing, guys?
Hey,
I'm good.
hey, we're back.
It's the week.
Oh yeah, it's
Finally
the week
here.
of the Zelda. By the time people are hearing this, they have Zelda, or they went to the store and it was sold out and they refused to buy digital. But
Or
yeah,
you're
Zelda's
some
out.
of the people who have it already and probably already tried to speed run it.
That
Well,
could also be true.
hopefully we give you a good podcast to listen to while you explore that new/familiar map of Hyrule. And that's actually something Harrison brought up that we should talk about this week. Is I think we can jump straight into it. As Harrison had the good ideas. This is a good week for us to all give our Zelda hot takes. If everyone brought a hot take to the luncheon today.
I did.
I
I
did.
mean, we're a podcast, and like, what's a podcast without having our hot takes every once in a while? So, uh, Kevin, are you the biggest Zelda person? Because if so, you should start this segment.
Okay. Yeah, I'd say Zelda is definitely one of my biggest franchises. I've beaten each game multiple times, so it's like it's the thing Zelda and Final Fantasy are like my two biggest video game things. So, this is all coming from a place of love. I want to maybe mitigate some of the feedback I might get by saying that. But my hot take, and this might be blasphemy on the release day of Tears of the Kingdom that this episode goes up, is I wish they did an original Zelda game instead of doing Tears of the Kingdom. Now, I'm saying that having not played it yet, but uh, I uh, I saw Breath of the Wild, like a lot of Zelda fans did, as like a separate thing. Like I enjoy it, I love it, but it didn't feel much like Zelda to me. I understand there's stuff in Tears of the Kingdom that are leaning more in that direction, but man, if you look at some of the tech demos they did back, like the Wii U tech demo they did, where he fought that spider and it looked more like a traditional Zelda. I'd love a game that looked like that and was more just traditional Zelda. And unfortunately, the last time we got something like that, it was like Skyward Sword. So I wish we would. I'm. It's been long enough for them to for a traditional Zelda game to be like a return at this point because it's been like 10 years.
I humbly and unabashedly disagree with you, sir. I'm very, very excited for Tears of the Kingdom.
Well, I'm not saying I'm not. That's why I prefaced it with that. I am excited for Tears of the Kingdom. It's just I'm excited for it like I would be excited for, like, I don't know, any other franchise out there, but
See,
it doesn't feel like a Zelda to me.
here's the difference. You guys played Breath of the Wild way more than I did. So because I didn't spend as much time in it, I'm excited to do all that in this one.
I want a boomerang,
So,
Sean.
oh, maybe there's a boomerang, or maybe you
Well,
can
I
make
get
a boomerang.
there are boomerangs in Breath of the Wild too, but like not like traditional boomerangs. Just like it's like a gimmick, and it's like I don't know. I
Right.
want my dungeons. I want it. There's just something about the art style of a Zelda game that this kind of feels different. I don't know. I want like a Tomb Raider Zelda, like where you're exploring the tombs and finding all kinds of cool, creepy stuff from the past.
So here's my hot take as to the other reason I'm excited. This one more so than, well, probably because it didn't exist yet, but this has a lot of Elden Ring vibes to me. which I really like because the way they did the exploration in that game is amazing and has a lot of those things you love. So I think they're gonna bring some of that to Tears of the Kingdom. So I'm really looking forward to. Oh wait, I'm in a dungeon. Oh, awesome! So I'm looking forward to just stumbling into things.
So your hot take is you're looking forward to the game.
Yeah, because like I said, I didn't spend as much time with Breath of the Wild as
Right.
everybody else did. I got it like 5 months after launch and everything, and like it's one of the games I regret buying the DLC because I never went and did it, and everyone's like, it's not that good. So for
I
me,
liked
this
it.
is like, well, everyone said
It
for what it
reminded me a little
was.
bit of Metal Gear Solid when you had to sneak around with that weapon that like one-shotted people, but you had to be all stealthy.
Like the
Oh, I mean, like
DLC.
The DLC, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, the motorcycle being like, oh, by the time you get it, it doesn't matter, and that it's just challenges. It doesn't really add much to the game, but I think because I didn't have that initial experience, because I admit I took a little while to get a Switch because I was sore about the Wii U. For me, this is like 2017, I guess, for me. So I'm excited.
I was late as well, and even when I got Breath of the Wild at first, I really didn't like that game when I first got it because I didn't get it. Like I didn't understand it at first.
Yep.
And I just thank God that like I took the time to try and play it and try to discover it on my own because I'm sure there's plenty of games out there that I would really enjoy if I took the time, but it might never happen or it might be years down the road. Um, so yeah, I think all of our hot takes today are kind of related to each other because okay, so I would like to serve up maybe the most normie hot take of the day, I think. And so here's mine. It's also Breath of the Wild related. Um, I think and this is related to a lot of the things that we'll see on like Reddit or Facebook or just different Nintendo groups. Like it or not,
Yep.
Breath of the Wild was a necessary game in the series, and it if you don't think it's the most important, I think that's totally fine. It's totally debatable, but I think it's a game that needs to be respected in the series. I think we talked last time. There have been over 30 million copies of this game between the two systems, and that is more than double Ocarina of Time. And numbers don't mean everything. I mean, of course, more people play games and more people have access to games than ever before. But I think that Breath of the Wild has been a great gateway into the Zelda series. And in my opinion, and it's always been my opinion, is that if it's something that you like, if it's something that you enjoy, something that you care about, it's something that you should try and share with others as well. And there's two criticisms I would give for people who like to criticize or like to troll about this game. One, I encourage people not to gatekeep. First off, like
Oh yeah.
if you were someone who is older and has been a Zelda fan, and someone else plays Breath of the Wild and it's their first Zelda game, that's great
Yeah,
because
they're playing it.
because now they're getting introduced to something that you like. And the
They're
second,
supporting the thing you like so that the companies will make more of the thing you like. I
yeah,
don't understand
I
gatekeeping
think
either.
to
yeah,
go with that, and I completely agree, Harrison, is I think because so many people tried Breath of the Wild who maybe didn't try a Zelda game, that's why Link's Awakening on Switch also did so well because it was like, hey, here's a traditional Zelda. All right, let's check that out. So yeah, I completely agree with you.
well, exactly. And the second part, and I'm almost done, is like it's. I think it's also I'm using a lot of buzzwords today. It's also the gaslighting that happens within this community as well. Of like, and here's the thing, like one of the most popular hipster banter, whatever we call it, is I liked it before it was cool. And
Oh man,
directly
that's the
related to
worst.
that, and this is a trope I've been thinking about a lot this week. It is um it's now it's popular, so it sucks. It's popular now,
Yeah.
so it sucks. And guys, it's just not true. And I don't know where it comes from. And I'll leave my point with a little bit of confusion because everything that I like, whether it's NBA basketball, whether it's video games, whether it's writing, I want to share that with as many people as possible. And if you like something years after me, I think that's great. You know,
Yeah.
so that's it. I don't know if you guys can relate. I don't know if there's ever been a time where you like something and you were like, huh, well, I've liked that for years. You know, I just that's it.
So yeah, it's kind of relevant. We were talking about it before we started recording. I was so happy when Kevin said he went to Evil Dead Rise because he hadn't seen one yet. That's one of my favorite horror series.
Right.
Like I said, that's a rough one to start with, I think. But I was
I
so happy.
find
I'm like,
I find that it happens to me with music the most is, and again, not trying to sound like a hipster, I won't name any specific bands, but there will be bands that like I liked it before it was popular, and I don't get mad that they're popular now, you know? I mean, if the music changes, that's another thing, but like I'm happy that they can, you know, keep getting supported because that means now they're less likely to break up and they're more likely to make more music. Like
yeah,
like bands get labeled as selling out for stuff like that, and it's like
Okay.
you know that they're trying to make money. Like of every band is trying to make money. They're not selling out by getting more fans.
I think this happens because music is an extremely powerful medium in our
Hmm.
in artistic space. I mean, fans of musical artists are crazier than anyone else. I swear to God. Like the fandom is very intense. But two things there. One, we don't know those musical artists. I mean, maybe you do, but you probably don't. And second,
Oh, I've got a side tangent that you just reminded me of
and
where
yeah,
it goes along with what you just said is yeah, we don't know those artists, and I have to say there's something I've noticed lately where when music artists post on Instagram or something like a picture with their family, I always find it super weird, and I don't understand why, because I don't get that same feeling if like an actor or like some other famous person does it, but it's always like if a rock star is like, hey, it's my kid's birthday, I'm like, you don't have kids, you're a god, what are you talking about?
right.
Like that you put them on this like unattainable platform. But
It's
go ahead.
it's the projection of it. And you said like selling out, which I think I really wish some people would just get over that idea. I read this book by Hugh McLeod recently. He's a blogger, cartoonist, and he has a whole chapter talking about how selling out is extremely difficult. Like if you ever get to a point in your life where you can sell out, you most likely you worked really hard to get there, and then you made a choice for yourself, and that's it.
Yep.
Um, so 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 yeah, um I think like if Breath of the Wild, if this game is pandering to the base or selling out or whatever it might be, this game has got more people involved with the Zelda series. And last week or last episode we did like Earthworm Jim, and we talked about how like it's not popping. It's like there's no reason why people jump into this game, but there's millions of reasons to play an old Mario game or an old Zelda game. Um, and I've played older Zelda games since Breath of the Wild.
Well, to clarify my hot take a little more, again, it's not that I'm not gonna love Tears of the Kingdom. It's just I feel like Link Between Worlds, like everybody gives Breath of the Wild credit for it, like it broke the Zelda formula and it did so many things different, and And I feel like Link Between Worlds did an equally good job of breaking the Zelda formula, but while still feeling like a Zelda game. And I'd like to see something on the scope of Tears of the Kingdom that has the Zelda feel that Link Between Worlds has, if that makes any sense. Like, that's what I wish this project looked more like.
Well, my prediction for you was that I thought you were going to have a Zelda timeline hot take.
I don't know if that's a hot take as much as like I just wish my timeline hot take is just don't pay attention to it. It doesn't matter. Whether it's real or not, it doesn't matter.
Right, and I thought that might be what you bring up, especially with this new game.
I thought about it.
Yeah,
I thought about it, and that I definitely feel like the Zelda timeline has lots of errors in it, and the geography of Hyrule changes a lot, and it's just like it's better if you just see it as like a loose continuity, almost like a show like The Simpsons, where it's like every now and then they will reference something that happened in the past, but sometimes it's like it never did, but sometimes it did happen. Something like that.
It's like Seinfeld.
Yeah, that too. A lot of TV shows have a loose continuity like that.
Yeah, I've always thought Zelda was like Seinfeld.
Yeah. What's the deal with the Octoroks? They're not rocks. They're not octopuses.
Come on. I can't trust what you're doing. Come on, let's go.
But anyway, we got some hot takes here on the Reddit thread that I made to ask other people their Zelda hot takes. So let me find some of these. Let's see. A lot of people saying Ocarina of Time is overrated. That's kind of a hot take. I'm not sure how hot that take is anymore, though.
It's still, I think it's still one of the controversial ones because it's a game that so many people have nostalgia for. So at the same time, there's contrarians that are like, "Oh, I've never played the game, but it sucks," you know.
All right, here's one that we can discuss. Water Temple and Great Bay Temple are some of the best dungeons in the series. I'm going to say...
What's the Great Bay Temple from?
Majora's Mask. It's the Water Temple of Majora's Mask.
That's why I don't know that.
So I'm going to hard disagree on this. I'm not saying... Here's my take on the Water Temple. It's not as bad as people say, but it's also not one of the best dungeons in the series. Like it's somewhere in the middle of those two thoughts. I personally like the legendary badness of the Water Temple was something I didn't even know about until the internet age. Back in 1998, I don't remember if I had like the Nintendo Power Player's Guide or what, but like I never remembered being bothered by the Water Temple. But I didn't love it either. It was just another temple.
Yeah, I'd say it's a good temple with a, for the time, interesting idea on how to traverse it, and kind of a disappointing, boring boss at the end.
I was listening to this is going to relate back. It's going to sound like a tangent, but it loops back, I promise. I was listening to another Nintendo podcast today talk about Jet Force Gemini. And in Jet Force Gemini, they were talking about how insane what you have to do to finish that game is. Like, there are these creatures, think of them like the Koroks in Zelda. You have to find so many of these things. It's like 300 of them, I think they were talking about on the podcast. And you basically have to do a perfect run of each level to save them all, because you don't get to like reset the data or anything. If any of them die or you miss them, you have to start back at the beginning of the level and redo it. And it's a crazy pain, and it sounds insane, right? And I remember listening to this podcast and being like, I don't remember that being that hard, but I know for a fact, because you have to do this to finish Jet Force Gemini. It doesn't let you go to the end boss unless you find them all. And I'm like, I remember beating that as a kid, and I remember the end boss. I remember what it is. And I don't remember ever feeling like that was a hassle. But the way video game playing has changed over the years, and to loop this back to the Water Temple, I don't ever remember changing the boots in Ocarina of Time as being a hassle. That's just how games worked back then. So like wasn't something I was like, oh, I got to keep pausing and changing the boots. So yeah, that's how I looped
I
that ran
think
around.
it's just partly that we, I guess, grew up in a naive time of video games, if that makes sense, because there wasn't the internet and there wasn't like, you know, it was like word of mouth and stuff. So like if you were stuck on the water temple and someone else knew how to do it, like, oh, did you try this or this? You know, it wasn't a, oh my god. So I did the water temple, and it's really annoying. I don't know. I don't remember ever having that conversation, even in games about games that I was not good at as a kid. Like I don't. Oh man, super ghouls and ghosts. Ugh. I was just. I don't know. I don't remember that being my frame of mind at the time.
Yeah, it's just perseverance, I think. I mean, uh, especially if that was like your game for the week. Like if you like went to Blockbuster and like that was it for I I don't know. I think at least for me, I think that's like now if I really get stuck and I'm not feeling it, I'll just look it up or I'll just move on to something else. But yeah, I think back then I was much more like I gotta finish it because if not, then what else do I do?
So here's another Reddit hot take. Wind Waker suffers the empty overworld issues as well as is horrible to do everything in. I think I think the pace of the game is much better until the Triforce quest, but I would still rather do it than be stopped every 5 minutes like in Twilight Princess. That they write a lot. But here's how I view that. This ties into something I've always said about those two games. I feel like they're a yin and a yang, Wind Waker and Twilight Princess. Whereas
Mm,
every time I start a playthrough of them, I feel like Twilight Princess takes forever to get going. Like you spend
Mm,
so much time in that first town,
yeah.
right.
but once you're going, it's a really good game. And I feel like Wind Waker has the opposite problem, where at the end of the game, there's so many fetch quests and so much just clearly just padding and padding and padding that it takes forever to get to Ganon at the very end. And I feel like they're unbalanced in opposite ways, both those games.
I'd agree with that. I would agree with their take that Wind Waker has kind of an empty open world, but it kind of works with the story.
The Zelda art
So,
book mentions that there were two dungeons that didn't make it into that game because of time
oh
Oh,
constraints.
yeah, and
So that would have been
you
nice to see
predicted
those.
that at the time. You were like, oh, maybe those be in Wind Waker HD, and they're not.
they're not.
Yeah, that would be
Of course,
that
of
would have
course.
been nice. But yeah, the remnants of those dungeons are, and it's been a while since I've done a playthrough, but there's like one island that you go to get the iron boots, which takes like 2 minutes, and it's likely those would have been a dungeon item in like a full dungeon. And what's the other one? There's like an ice island. I forget what you get
Yeah,
there.
yeah, you can go to both. I'm
Yeah.
assuming, yeah, that those would have been where they would have been. Yeah.
The ice island would have been like a full dungeon too. Yeah.
But overall, because I'm crazy, Wind Waker is right now still my favorite 3D Zelda. So
I really like that
It's in
take.
my top 3 probably.
that's like my favorite end fight with Ganon. I don't know. I like a lot of. It has some issues, but overall, I think it's a pretty solid entry.
Well, shout out to that person because I really like that take. Because I think that's something that we see in quite a few Nintendo games, and I've even heard this criticism with Breath of the Wild. Like I've heard people say, like, "Oh, I wish after you beat the game, you could restart and not have to do the Great Plateau." Like even that.
That's another
Mm.
hot take in here.
Uh,
Another one,
mm,
one real quick. One of these hot takes is that they think the Zelda series should have more end game content after you finish the game.
really? Aren't for
I
me they're the side quests. But yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, I could see. in Breath of the Wild, yeah, but I don't know about the linear ones necessarily.
I found it. Here it is. Zelda games need post-game content. I always hated when games don't let you save after finishing the final boss, even if the boss is still there. The game should set a flag, let you do something else to explore the world and side quests with. This is something I do remember bringing up as like a teenager, being like, I wish games let you save after you beat the final boss and like the people in the town like talk to you as if you saved the
Oh
world.
yeah, yeah.
Like that would be cool.
That's very true.
Pokemon does that sometimes, where after you beat the Elite Four, they'll refer to you as like a Pokemon master or whatever.
I mean, it's very true. I mean, the first time I beat Breath of the Wild, I thought, what happened? And all you get is a star. Like that's it.
Yeah.
like that's like that you did a good job on your assignment. I mean,
I'm a bigger fan of New Game Plus now. Like I love when
Yeah.
games will let you start over with all the stuff you accomplished, or like let you start at level 99 or whatever. Like I love just plowing through things.
adding a prestige system, and I'm pretty sure this is one of the reasons why roguelites are so popular these days. It's like okay, you try it,
Mhm.
you die, you get more powerful, in the game, you die, you get more powerful outside of the game. Like I think I think there's a very logical loop to that. And if you have the DLC for Breath of the Wild, you already have the what's it called, the intense mode, the harder mode,
Oh, yeah.
whatever the hard mode is in that game. So uh, I agree with that take 100%.
All right, last one I'll read here. This guy's got a lot of good ideas.
Come on the show, bro.
I should have been reading their names, but Ocarina of Time should have had a Temple of Light. As soon as you get the third spiritual stone, you get way too much all at once, and child-adult dungeon. Oh, a child/adult dungeon like the Spirit Temple or Under the Well, the Shadow Temple, should have been the way you get the Master Sword, and the Song of Time should have been how you switch between ages.
Wow.
So that's something I don't think the Nintendo 64 was capable of, which is why they force you to warp to the Temple of Time every time you want to change the timeline. But I agree, if it was possible, just like in A Link to the Past, all you have to do is equip the mirror and press the button.
Yeah.
You should have been able to just play the song and switch the time period right where you were standing.
Right.
That would have been cool. But I don't know if it was possible.
It could have been possible
At,
in the remake, though, possibly. But
yeah. At one point in the development, I think one of the medallions might have done it that you get from finishing the temple, because those all had abilities early on, and they switched those. They ended up, trashing that idea for making the songs do things.
Yeah.
But you can, like, the development of Ocarina of Time, I've always found fascinating, because like you can see now that people have hacked the game so much of what they were doing, and like you can see early screenshots in magazines from the time, and I remember seeing the forest medallion equipped to a C button and being like, what does it do? And years later they answered, well, some of them warped you, but we changed it so that the ocarina gave you a song that would warp you. But like originally, like I guess you'd equip the forest medallion and it would warp you to the forest temple. The fire medallion used to do what Din's fire does, which is why that symbol is in the Shadow Temple. When you go there, it's got the fire medallion symbol on the place where you're supposed to use Din's fire. So yeah, there's some trivia for you.
Way to go, Reddit! Like some of you guys should be on this show. Yeah.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll reach out to some of them. I think one of them did say they were available. So
heard that.
Everyone's
Heard that
always-
one before.
Yeah,
Always
exactly.
room for more.
But yeah, let me see here. So I think that's all the hot takes we got. Like to move on to the other activity, and hold on, this is the one thing I didn't get queued up here. I want to be sure I credit the right account. So I got this idea from an account on YouTube called Nintendo Hero. And what they did was they went through every year of Nintendo, their first party releases, like stuff that was released by Nintendo each year, and they picked their favorite. So I thought it'd be a cool thing for us to do. Maybe just go 10-year increments.
That's all I did.
And like next week we'll pick up where we left off, because I'm sure there'll be enough to discuss. But let's jump right in here. So 1985, first Nintendo year. We've got Super Mario Brothers / Duck Hunt, Ice Climber, Tennis, Wild Gunman, Wrecking Crew, Golf, Excite Bike, Pinball, and Hogan's Alley. I should say I did curate this list. There's stuff that I didn't put on here because I'm like, no one's ever gonna pick it. Like, there's no Virtual Boy games on this list. And yeah, there's some really interesting years in here. But yeah, let's 1985.
I mean, is anyone going with not Super Mario Brothers?
Well, I'm going with
Ice Climber.
Super Mario Brothers Duck Hunt. Yeah. I'm going with that one.
Well,
but I'll just add my second would be baseball, because as I've said in the past, that's my most played 1985 game outside of Mario Brothers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's either that or Excite Bike for my most played from that year, but I'm definitely picking Super Mario Brothers for 1985. So that one's unanimous. Okay. 1986. Balloon Fight. These all got released probably the same day. Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong 3 all came out that year. Mario Brothers, like the arcade one.
Yep.
Popeye. Oh, I forgot to say at the beginning of this. So the only kind of rule I have in here is I didn't include any re-releases or remakes.
Right.
So like if you want to pick Wind Waker, you can't like wait for Wind Waker HD. It's not going to be on here. But anyway, Mario Bros, Popeye, Gumshoe, Metroid.
I put Donkey Kong Jr. for this year.
Really?
interesting.
I wanted to put Balloon Fight, but I don't know. It's not a very big year for me. But yeah, maybe the most hours is Balloon Fight, but I put Donkey Kong Jr. I don't know.
No, I went with OG Donkey Kong.
So we all have a different answer, because I'm going, and this might be recency bias because I've been obsessed with the series lately, I'm going with Metroid.
Okay. All right.
I mean, I know that first game hasn't aged perfectly, but like I love the music in that game, and I love the overall like feeling of isolation it gives. And you remember the website Screw Attack that was super popular? Like every time I hear the Metroid, that like beep boop beep boop thing, I always think
That's
of
what
them.
you think of.
Yeah. So everyone's different for 86. Nice. 87. Kid Icarus, The Legend of Zelda, Punch Out, Pro Wrestling, Soccer, and Volleyball. Sock and boppers.
Chris, what are you doing? Or sorry, not Chris, Kevin. Chris isn't here today. Chris isn't here today. Kevin, what did you put?
As tempting as Punch Out is, I'm going with The Legend of Zelda, and I feel like recently people have started to turn on this game. I've seen a lot of takes online of people being like, it hasn't aged well, and it's super difficult and this and that, but I still play this game. I love this game. And it's not just because Tears of the Kingdom's coming out.
So
categories.
Yeah, good God, it's always one of them.
My favorite game is Meow.
Yes, it's a very good game, Boots. I went with Punch Out just because I enjoy that one the most out of the stuff that came out that year.
Yes, I also have to go with Punch Out. By far, my most hours of any of these games, and Zelda was more of a game I played later on. Like I mentioned, I played it in like Animal Crossing. I played it on Virtual Console. So I'm going to go with Punch Out.
No, that's actually one of the NES games I remember playing with Zelda. I played it at my neighbors a lot. I do think, well, we'll get to this in the next year, but I think, yeah, next year, 1988. Ice Hockey, Donkey Kong Classics, Super Mario Brothers 2, The Legend of Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link.
And I'll
tell my story
and
here. Oh, go ahead.
I would say I went with the Spotlight game for today. So I went with
Okay.
Mario Brothers 2, and then I have to mention RBI Baseball because again, that's probably my most hours of any of these games.
So out of those, I'd go with Ice Hockey because that's the one I played the most and I enjoyed the most. So
Well, I don't think I'm going to pick every Zelda game, but I'm picking Zelda again because to tie in with what I was saying a second ago, I do remember playing Legend of Zelda on the NES, but I think I played Adventure of Link more. I have a really strong nostalgic connection to that game.
it's a good game.
So we're all different again. Okay, 1989. This is when the Game Boy came out. So we got a lot of Game Boy games. They took it easy on the NES this year, I guess, to promote that thing. We've got Alleyway, Baseball, Super Mario Land, Tennis, Tetris, To the Earth, which I didn't know what this was, so I looked it up. And I can't tell if I remember this game or if the cover is just so generic that it feels like something from that time that I would remember. But it's like a shooting space shooter game. Short Order / Explode, which was a trackpad game on the NES. And that's it for that year.
Interesting.
So a lot of Game Boy stuff.
I
thought so. I thought so.
Yeah. I mean, Tetris got to be one of the best games of all time. Like, so addicting, so timeless, everlasting. Got to be Tetris.
Right. So for 89, I did put John Elway football just to be different, just to throw it out there.
Okay.
I did play that game a ton as a kid, and it's way too easy. It's like because it's the same year as Tecmo Bowl, and that game is also way too easy. Like it's just way too much offense. But no Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Isn't that 89?
It is,
that's
but it's not a
It's
first
not a
party
first
game.
party.
Yeah, it's not Nintendo.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't think I would have picked that anyway. So.
Okay, 1990. Now we're in the 90s. Super Mario Brothers
Yeah.
3, Dr. Mario on both NES and Game Boy, Golf on Game Boy, Star Tropics on NES, and Play Action Football on Game Boy. So these are Nintendo's releases. Another obvious year, I think. Yeah, we're all going
I'm
Super
gonna
Mario
go with
Brothers 3.
Dr. Mario.
Are you?
Are you
Really?
Yeah. I am. I stand by that.
I'm sure there's someone in the world that would go Star Tropics, by the way, too. That game has like a crazy
yeah.
cult following, but I am not in the cult.
Not in that cult.
I don't
Um,
nah.
Yeah.
You're in a cult.
But
yeah, sorry.
I mean,
Yeah, I never
Dr.
played
Mario
Star
is
Tropics.
good, but it's just like it's
the year after
don't know.
Tetris.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just 89 and 90, Sean was just all into the puzzle games.
All right, 1991. Now we're looking at some Super Nintendo. So now we're supporting 3 systems. We got Super Nintendo, Game Boy, and NES is still out there. So we got Super Mario World, F1 Race, the prequel, F-Zero. I should say F1 Race was on Game Boy, F-Zero, Super Mario World, Super Nintendo. Pilot Wings, Super Nintendo. NES Open Tournament Golf, NES. Kid Icarus of Myths and Monsters for Game Boy, and Metroid 2 Return of Samus on Game Boy. I have to say, I'm not picking it, but I threw F-Zero on the other day on the Switch online, and man, that game, like, I have a lot of nostalgia for that game too. Like the music hit me, like, I don't know, that's like up there with like Mega Man music. It's got such good music in that game. But obvious choice is Super Mario World.
So by our recency bias, I'm gonna go with NES Open Tournament Golf because I kind of
You're just being
kinda like it
contrarian
more.
now. There's no way you're picking Open Tournament Golf over Super Mario World for your favorite game of 91.
It's fine, Sean. Sean, it's
yeah.
fine. Pick whatever you want. This is your list.
38, soon to be 39-year-old me. Yeah, is going with golf. So
You're not going to make it to 39 if you keep making these picks.
So I also did write down Open Tournament, but I want to ask though, because
This podcast is over.
But I want to make sure, because I already messed up once today. Is where in time is Carmen Sandiego? Is that a Nintendo exclusive? It's Konami, so I think it was only Nintendo, because that's my pick.
Okay.
Where in time is Carmen Sandiego? So we can all be different. You know, maybe Super Mario World wasn't that great that year.
I don't know. Wait,
I'm living in a madhouse over here.
I mean,
one of the best games Nintendo has ever made, and I'm the only one picking it.
Well, I thought
right.
I thought we would pick some like ones that we played a lot, because I mean, I did have that on my list, but I also had like games like Wayne Gretzky hockey for 1991, like games I just played a lot that year. Like, I don't know.
I brought you guys here to defend me against these people, and the only one on my side is the blood-sucking lawyer.
I think these are
okay. 1992. Oh, go ahead.
all good games. I'm ready. 92.
92. Super Mario Land 2, 6 golden coins on Game Boy. Super Mario Kart on Super Nintendo. Super Soccer on Super Nintendo. Kirby's Dream Land on Game Boy. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past on Super Nintendo. Yoshi on Game Boy. Battle Clash on Super Nintendo. So I guess the NES is done.
Just almost.
So do you want to?
Oh, nope. There's
off?
an NES game next year.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Do you want to kick me off now, or?
I honestly don't know what I'm going with here, because I love
A Link
to the Past. I love A Link to the Past. It is one of my favorite games, but I do get the feels when I play 6 golden coins, but 6 golden coins is really short. I played it recently on the Switch shot, like when they first dropped those Game Boy games, and I feel like I finished it in like 2 days. Like, it's really short. And I wasn't playing marathon sessions. I was playing like casual sessions. So yeah, I'm going to go with A Link to the Past. I know I'm not going to pick every Zelda game, even though so far I have, but those first like 5 Zelda games are all just flawless to me.
So Sean, what is it?
Super Mario
okay.
Kart.
I thought it was going to be something controversial, like something way more.
To this day, that's my favorite Mario Kart. So
there are days that it's mine too. Like I go back and forth between that and Mario Kart 64. After that, Mario Kart got too complicated for me. I've played them all. But yeah, it's either that or 64. Like I can't decide. It's not a bad pick.
Yeah. I
There's something adorable about those sprites. Like they're flat and like I don't know. There's something really cool about the art style of that game. What's your pick,
I'm
Harrison?
going Link to the Past, and it's most likely because we
Yeah.
played it recently. Yeah.
Again, I enjoyed the heck out of it playing it this time, and all that. But Mario Kart's got a little edge.
I mean, Mario Kart's a great pick. I mean, we could have, I think, a big debate on what the most important game of this year would be. Because that could be it. I mean, it's
Yeah, I think it's more
Well,
fun to go with your
yeah.
favorites, though.
exactly.
That's
Mario
when you
Kart,
get crazy picks like open tournament golf over Super Mario World.
You got it.
Mario Kart led to the current generation of you have to own Mario Kart 8 in order to even turn your Switch on. So
I didn't realize until I made this list that F-Zero came out before Mario Kart, which I guess makes sense because F-Zero doesn't even have a 2-player mode, which is crazy. But
yeah, I always thought that was weird.
All right. 1993. There's not a lot this year. Nintendo took it easy this year. And unless you can I will admit I did notice like some glaring omissions when I was using this source to make this list.
Yeah.
Like I'll just say it. Like they didn't have the first Mario Galaxy game listed. And I was like, I got to look up what year that came out now because that's definitely in there. But yeah, so if I'm missing anything, leave a comment below, like Harrison said last episode. But all this said for 93 was Legend of Zelda Link's Awakening on Game Boy, Star Fox on the Super Nintendo, and Kirby's Adventure on the original Nintendo.
I'd go with Star Fox.
Those are some solid games.
I also went Star Fox, but I wanted to bring up one of my favorite Nintendo titles as far as name goes. Super Baseball 2020 came out this year.
I've heard of that game. People have a good nostalgia factor.
Well, maybe not. Well, maybe not anymore, though. I mean, I think it's funny that it was supposed to be like, oh, it's baseball in the future, and now people are like, oh, and now people are like, oh yeah, 2020. Let me tell you, yeah, real nostalgic year, 2020. Yeah, I wish I could go back. So,
I'm also going to pick Star Fox, make it unanimous, because as we discussed when we brought up Star Fox last time, I was super into that at the time, and Star Fox was going to be my thing, and then the series didn't really go the way I wanted it to.
Oh, and fun fact, when I was doing my Zelda research, the Link's Awakening remake sold more than the original and the Game Boy Color remake combined. I found out.
I feel like that came up on the show before. But yeah, that is crazy.
It sold over 6 million copies, the remake, but just in context, it sold more than the past 2 games combined. Which, wow.
Which I'm like surprised when it sold that well. How have they not remade another Zelda game in that art style? Like that art style is just sitting there. You have the assets. Do something with it. It's so cute and adorable. I want to see more of it.
Remake or make a new, like because
that too.
Going back to your hot take, like okay, like we could have something original outside instead of Tears of the Kingdom or outside of it, because there was a 6-year gap between those games, or 6 or 7 years.
Yeah. All right, 1994. Donkey Kong Country on the Super Nintendo.
Sold. Oh, sorry.
Donkey Kong on the Game Boy. Super Metroid on the Super Nintendo. Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3 on Game Boy, and Wario's Woods on the NES and SNES. So now I know Nintendo's done, because I know that was the last Nintendo game. So your last year for
Oh,
original Nintendo stuff.
I was confused when you said Nintendo. I was like, what?
The NES. I know the NES
Yeah.
is done here.
Uh,
And Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, I always thought it was funny how those Game Boy games got titled
Yep.
because it's almost like how the Game Boy Advance Mario series is confusing. The Game Boy Mario series is confusing because you have Mario Land, then you have Mario Land
Yep.
2, then you have Wario Land, Super Mario Land 3, then you have Wario Land 2. So technically, there's no game that's just Wario Land. There's no Wario Land 1.
It's
Wario Land 1 is Super Mario Land
it's
3.
incredibly confusing. It is.
Yeah.
To add to confusing and weird Nintendo titles for me this year is Ken Griffey Jr. presents Major League Baseball. That's my pick.
That is a pop, like, I'm not a sports guy, but I do hear that is a popular series. That and the one on Nintendo 64, I think, is supposed to be
Right.
really good.
Well, right. Slugfest, which sold more, I think. But I forgot to bring this up when we did our baseball episode. But I reached out to like my baseball friends and I asked them, like, when you think about playing a baseball game as a kid, what athlete do you think of? Everyone says King Griffey Jr. I mean, some said more than one name, but the first name everyone brings up is King Griffey Jr. Because if you're like around our age, like 30s or so, and you like baseball, he was probably your guy back in the day because he's a kid. He was so cool. Also, I want to also add, 1994 was the year of Shaq Fu, and also
Yes.
Michael Jordan, Chaos in the Windy City, which came out before Space Jam. So like, Michael Jordan had a really crazy retirement. Like Michael Jordan.
And it's also the reason he's not in a lot of sports games from the time is he held out on his license to make things like that.
Wow, Kevin, good. Yeah, that's right. Because in the Kobe Bryant basketball game, there are two players left off. One is Michael Jordan, and the other is Latrell Sprewell. Latrell Sprewell.
Strange decision.
Latrell Sprewell wasn't added because he choked out his coach. That was kind of a different reason.
I love random sports horror stories like that. I remember when we were in high school, I don't remember the player, but there was this controversy at the time where there was a hockey player who hit another hockey player with their hockey stick, like violently. And we had a class at the time called like team sports or something, and because that was like topical, they gave us like an opinion. It wasn't a quiz, but it was like a thing the teacher gave us to fill out the answers, and it was our opinion on that guy hitting the other guy with the stick. And I wrote the same thing for every answer because it was like, question 1, do you think he should be suspended for what he did? I was like, yes, he hit a guy with a stick. They were like, do you think criminal charges should be filed? Yes, he hit a guy with a stick. Like, I just wrote the same thing for each answer.
All right. Well, random.
Do you think he should be kicked out of the Players League? Yes, he hit a guy with a stick.
He was probably still in the video game though, whatever game that was. But the NBA was a little bit different back then. There were people choking out people, just they got in trouble for it. And
Donkey Kong Country.
Exactly.
Yeah, I guess we don't do my pick this year. My pick this year is Super Metroid. Not to be contrarian to all the Donkey Kong Country love. I've tried to get in. I'm not like, picking it over it. It's Donkey Kong Country is like a series I've never been able to get into. I've tried it a few times. There's just something about it that doesn't click with me. I'll probably try it a few more times. In fact, I'm going to have to because eventually it's going to come up as the spotlight game. But yeah, it just never clicks with me. I've tried. So Super Metroid's my pick.
And that's
All right, in the last year for this 10-year, what's that?
This would be year 11. But
Oh.
we can do it though. I didn't write it down.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to do it anyway just because I think it's a good stopping point because 96 is when the Nintendo 64 comes out, so we'll create some suspense.
Oh, you're
All
gonna
right.
be super angry that year. Go ahead.
So 1995, the games to choose from: Earthbound on the Super Nintendo, Donkey Kong Land on Game Boy, Yoshi's Island Super Mario World 2 on the Super Nintendo, Donkey Kong Country 2 Diddy Kong's Quest on the Super Nintendo. That's it.
Really,
I
my
played
pick
Earth-
isn't on there. That's weird.
What's your pick?
Kirby's Dream Course.
Did that come out in 95?
It did.
Well, that was a glaring omission from the source I was using. Like I said, there were a few of them because I love that game as well. It's not my pick, but I love that game as well. I would have made sure it was on here. So I played Earthbound for the first time this year, and I did really like it, but I don't know how soon I'm going to replay it. I loved Yoshi's Island when we replayed it for the podcast, though. I'm going Yoshi's Island. I'm surprised you're not going with Donkey Kong Country 2, Sean. I've heard that that's like the best of the Super Nintendo Donkey Kongs.
I haven't never beaten that one.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know. Kirby's Dream Course is in like my top 5 games ever. So
Interesting. And
I wasn't
Harrison,
prepared.
your
I'm
response.
going Yoshi's. I'm going
okay.
Yoshi's Island. I'm looking through.
It's a good pick.
Yeah. There's nothing. I don't. I mean, I was so young, but it's weird how like there's certain years where I have like 5 or 10 like real nostalgic games, and some years where I have like one. I don't know. It's
Yeah.
very strange. But yeah. Okay. So that's our first 11 years. All right.
Well, next week we'll be starting with 1996, and I'll spoil this. It's one of the hardest decisions in this entire thing that I made was that year. The two games I love very much came out in 96, but we'll talk about that next week.
well, we'll see if I get your
Might be a
evil
short
ire.
podcast.
And now on to our spotlight game. So I know we missed a week of podcasts, but we still kept the same game in there. So we played Super Mario Brothers 2, which came out in 1988 in North America, September 1988, and September of 1992 in Japan. It's one of the only games that came out in North America before Japan.
I like that in Japan it was Super Mario USA.
Yeah. Everybody knows this game started off as Doki Doki Panic, but it's not just the simple reskin. I looked into this for this segment because I've never really looked into what the differences are. Like, what did they change from the original game to make this a Mario Brothers game? And there's a video on YouTube that's like 40 minutes long, and I just kind of took the most interesting parts. So here's a couple key differences from Doki Doki Panic to Super Mario Brothers 2. So the phantom faces are different in both versions. The face that chases you,
Hate those guys.
It doesn't start chasing you until you leave the room in the original game. And obviously in the Mario one, it starts chasing you as soon as you pick up that key.
Well, that would have been nice to keep the same.
And they added more to them in Super Mario Brothers. There's not as many in the original game because they liked that mechanic so much. The crab boss is new. In the original, it was another battle with Mauser. So that guy is new. A lot of enemy placements, just like a lot. That's why this video is 40 minutes long. It's just like a lot of enemy placements here and there are different to make some things easier and some things harder. The music is different. So the subspace theme, the star theme, which is the classic Mario, that's different. Um, the main theme is extended in the Super Mario Brothers version, so it's the same in the original but shorter. It loops quicker. Same thing with the character select screen. That music is longer. And the cave theme in the original has no bongos, and it's a slower tempo.
What?
Slower tempo. Yeah, no bongos. A lot of sound effects are different. The potion is a magic lamp in the original. And here's the worst one. You can't combo throw enemies in the original. You know how you can go like root, 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 and like knock like 4 enemies out with the same thing?
Yeah.
Can't do that. You can't. Here's a crazy one. So in the original game, you can't switch characters midway through an adventure. What you do is you have the character select screen, and wherever you left off with that character is where you'll have to pick up with them when you want to use them. So if you're on level 5 and you want to use a character you haven't used since level 2, now you have to beat level 2, 3, and 4 to get to level 5 and use them there.
That's weird.
Yeah.
So
and to kind of help this, in the original you could save your progress, which you can't do in the Mario Brothers one. So those are the major differences.
Wait, you can save your progress in Doki Doki Panic?
Yes.
Wait, Japan. Hold on. So you don't give us the lost levels because it's too difficult for Western audiences, but in Japan you can save your game? I mean,
I guess they didn't want to pay for the batteries. This was actually this game, I remember there was a shortage of them when it came out. Something to do with some kind of computer chip at the time. Like you can literally go on YouTube and find news stories from the year that Super Mario Brothers 2 came out that there was like a shortage.
Was that like the first time that happened in the gaming
probably
industry?
not.
Might be.
I don't know.
Yeah, there might be something for Atari.
I'm just saying I don't know because it sounds like something that's going to always happen. I feel like it's just since the beginning of gaming time, but perhaps. So.
Well, I also kind of noted when I was playing, there's a lot of elements of this game that continued on in the franchise that are obvious, like Birdo and the Shy Guys making their debut. But there's one thing that I think people don't think about, and that is that this is the first Mario game that allows you to lift and throw objects, which is something that is standard in like every other Mario game.
Right.
Because if you think about it, you couldn't throw the Koopa shells in Super Mario Brothers. You could only step on them.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I mean, I think there's like the two biggest innovations is that, and then just being able to select multiple different characters, because those are things that follow in very many mainline or other Mario games.
So that leads me into a question I had for you guys. Has your character of choice changed as an adult from when you were a kid?
I used to do this funny thing on this. Well, I thought it was funny as a kid, where on the character select screen, you know how when you pick the character, they raise their hand? So what I would do is I would ask an inappropriate question and then pick a character so they would raise their hand.
Like what?
It killed. This is a family-friendly show, sir. Who smells bad?
Something like that. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, great question, Sean. Because I was gonna say no, it hasn't. It's always been Luigi. And actually, I didn't realize until yesterday, or whenever I was doing this research, they all have different stats, and Luigi is like the worst one. Like he's not the fastest. He can't jump the highest.
Toad's pretty bad. His specialty is like he can pick things up quicker.
I thought Luigi has the best jump. No,
I don't have it. I don't have it up here now. But
That I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. It was always like Luigi and Yoshi for me whenever I was like selecting characters in any game. How about you, Sean?
So when I was a kid, I always went with Toad because I felt like that picking stuff up quicker thing helped you.
You just
But
like that he
as
sags his pants.
a...
He had a cool, edgy look.
But as an adult, I go with Peach because I like having the control of the descents. I feel like Luigi's the hardest one to play that game with.
I was very basic and sometimes used Mario, but I think I also mostly used Peach. So, and I continue to, although that didn't carry over to 3D World. In 3D World, I used Luigi. So, I don't know what
I
happened
don't
there.
know if they. I'm not sure if they have different attributes in 3D World.
They do.
They do.
It's the same thing. They like carried it
Same
forward
thing,
as a
really?
tradition. Yeah. Peach can float, Luigi has like a hover jump, Mario's kind of just normal, and Toad is super fast.
Way for me to not pay attention while I played through that whole game.
Which is interesting that like that game's like 30 years later and it's got the same roster. So, shows a little bit of legacy for this game.
Yeah, legacy or copy and paste. Yeah. Because like there was a couple things like I watched Gerard's video on this, and I'm gonna steal one of his takes. Is that he wishes that on like the vertical levels in Super Mario Brothers 2 that they weren't made in that they're not made in blocks, because I'm sure when like the
Okay.
original Nintendo you had to make it in blocks, but why not when you have better technology, why can't you just make it so that when you go up in the level you're just going up and you're not going up to the next block? That is
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, I think because we've played quite a few games that have had remakes, and there could be there are rooms for quality of life or just overall improvements of the game that wouldn't take away from anything.
I I'd like to talk about Wart
Yes.
for a second. I agree.
Oh,
I agree with
Wart's a good
everything
guy.
you just said. Yeah. I wish he'd be in
Yes.
more stuff. He's a cool design.
Yeah.
I looked up to see if I was missing anything, and what I saw on Wikipedia was he's mentioned in Paper Mario Color Splash. He has a cameo in The Legend of Zelda
Mhm.
Link's Awakening,
Yep.
and you can
Yeah.
use him in Super Mario Maker, and
I
that's
don't.
it.
Can you use him in Mario Maker?
Mario Maker 2.
Can you
Sorry.
use him? I thought it was like reference. There's I don't know.
Oh, I don't. I'm just using Wikipedia listed it, so maybe I just assumed that you could use him. Maybe he's
So
just mentioned.
crazy theory. So when Super Mario Odyssey 2 comes out and he's the bad guy, it's going to be amazing because it's
I
been so
remember,
long.
I remember pre-internet, possibly even pre-Super Mario Brothers 3. My friends and I thought that Wart was King Koopa, and the character from the first game was Bowser. And it makes sense if you think about it, because he looks like a king. He's got the robe, he's got a crown. And the second game in the series should give you like the villain that like outranks the previous villain, you know? So I always thought he
Gotcha.
was King Koopa and he was Bowser. And I don't know when I discovered the truth.
So Wart is the first end Mario boss I ever beat because Mario 2 is the first one I ever completed, actually.
Nice.
yeah, and I really like this character, but like I think that final boss battle is a little bit lackluster. I think, but that could be true of all of the Nintendo final bosses.
Well, it could have been even more lackluster because I learned in the video I watched that in Doki Doki Panic, Wart takes less hits to kill. He takes 3 in Doki Doki Panic and 5 in Mario Brothers.
I feel like they took a game that was really easy in Japan and made it like Western audience difficult because the actual Super Mario Brothers 2 was way too difficult. So this is like in the
Well,
middle.
let's let's take away the language we're using here for Super Mario Brothers Lost Levels as being difficult. Everybody says, "Oh, it was too difficult for Western audiences." It wasn't difficult. It was a troll. They were trolling gamers with that game. They put blocks intentionally in places to kill you rather than let you enjoy the game. That's not difficulty. That's just trolling.
Okay.
It is
Okay.
There's my
it
hot
is
take.
interesting just the language that is used, and you think about the kind of data they had of possibly just like sending out physical surveys of these games. But yeah, it's just funny that like we were so disconnected back in the 80s that it's like, oh yeah, on this side of the world, this game is going to be too difficult for all of these people. Uh,
You know, I'm really hoping Wart's one of the last Mario Kart DLC characters. That would be really cool.
It's so weird that they don't use him in anything. Like it almost makes me wonder if because he was in Doki Doki Panic, if there's like a character rights
I
issue or something.
I just think it's strange because like there's no lack of interest or lack of fans. I feel like
Yeah.
Nintendo time and time again has been very particular of what IPs and what characters they put out into the world, because I mean you could put 10 warts out into the world and Nintendo fans are just going to eat it all up. Like there's plenty of room. Like I've learned over time that there's plenty of room for all of those things. Uh,
One of the things I've always liked about Mario 2 is that it has such a diverse like menagerie of bad guys, and they feel a lot more difficult to fight than Koopas. Like because you have to pick them up, and like I like the little detail that they keep trying to move when you've got them, and like the only way to hurt them is throw them at each other. I think overall this is one of the more challenging 2D Marios.
it's definitely more challenging, and from 1 to 2 there's tons of more ways to go about this game, because just on the fact that you can pick up, you can pick up like power blocks, you can pick up the stopwatch. uh, there's there's different ways to approach the game, which is what I'm trying to say.
This game actually was the first game that instilled a sense of stress in me when playing a video game because of the mask guy like coming
When
after
you
you
have the
with the
key.
key, or even the sections where it's like, oh hey, that door you got to get to, you got to dig down this part of the level and there's all these shy guys walking around, so good luck. And when you get down there, you got to get back up. And I don't remember experiencing that in a game before that.
And then Mario Brothers 3 kind of recreated that with those
Oh my
sun
God,
levels.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although the sun is less scarier than the masks. The masks seem more like hell bent on destroying you to me.
I thought the sun level when I was a kid was terrifying. I mean, I because I thought it was like a clown. It's like this the way that it smiles at you. That was the scary part to me. But then that was also the one where as I got older, I stopped using the P wing, and I just enjoyed like trying to go as fast as possible. But this is not a Super Mario Brothers 3 discussion, though. This is a
No, that ship has sailed. To go back to other
yeah,
episodes.
oh, and I had never read like the insert, like the story behind this game, but yeah, like
Oh, really?
Wart hates vegetables, which is why you throw the vegetables.
Yes.
And so this starts out with Mario. Mario has a dream about this like subcon world, and then the next day goes on a picnic with the other 3 characters, and they realize that like they all had the same dream the night before, which which is just kind of
Yes.
like they were all hallucinating the same thing together, huh?
It happens.
It does happen, and
Oh.
and it's a perfect way to like justify bringing in another world or another dimension. You can just add in dreams or time travel or whatever it might be. Uh, but yeah, very interesting backstory on this. My favorite boss was the Fry guy. Even though when I was a kid, once I got to World 4, I was like, this sucks. Like this is no good. Because once again, like
I
yeah.
think my favorite boss is the snake, but the fry guy is good. I feel like all the bosses are pretty good.
So let's start with Sean. Sean, where would you rank this game?
So I put it at number 6 because Kirby's Adventure just has a few things that put it just above Mario 2. But I
Okay.
have such fond memories of this game, and like I said, it's the first Mario I completed. I feel like it is better than everything that's underneath it.
Yeah, I agree. I love this game. I've said before that I actually think I like this more than Super Mario Brothers 3. So that's exactly where I ranked it. It's my number 3 game now,
Oh
right
wow.
above Super Mario Brothers 3 because I like them both, but I feel like I have a little more nostalgia for this one. Uh like I remembered I remembered when I was looking stuff up for it for this week that the Super Mario Brothers Super Show took so much from this game because Super Mario Bros. 3 wasn't out yet, and then that got its own
Oh
cartoon.
yeah.
So just so much nostalgia for this game. But
I'm gonna
Harrison,
put it
where you at?
also at number 3. So right above that is Link to the Past, and right below that is Yoshi's Island.
Yep.
All right, all right. So yeah, I think in my case the top 5 there being what they are just a little better, but yeah, I think Super Mario 2 I know Harrison kind of always does this, but this is one if you haven't played it, definitely if you've got the online service, give it a shot cuz it's really just unique and there are elements that have carried over like the shy guy's just the normal enemy now in Mario and it's like, well, this is where they started. So
All right, and with that, let us do our pick for next week and find out what we're playing.
I just feel bad for whatever it is. It's like, oh, what are you gonna do while
Oh my
Tears of the Kingdom updates?
god.
So obviously, besides playing Tears of the Kingdom, we're going to be playing a Sega Genesis Classic ? Sega Genesis game, Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Which, Sean, you love your
Oh,
puzzle games, so it's time.
yeah, I'm not good at that one, but I'll give it a go. It's basically Puyo Puyo, I think.
Thank God we didn't pick like Ocarina of Time or something this week. I didn't think that like I wanted something that wasn't going to be like too time consuming.
Yeah, I definitely the Mean Bean Machine will get some time to shine before Hyrule takes over my existence.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot. The actual pick is a super long RPG. Um,
Oh, that's a
it's
really good
Earthbound.
one.
It's Earthbound. You have to play Earthbound this week, all of it. Okay. Anyway, as always, keep in mind we're Nintendo fans, not Nintendo experts. So if you'd like to send us any corrections or anything, just email us. We got the Nintendo Therapy Pod at gmail.com account hopping. I checked it before this recording. Ain't nobody talking to us. So send us an email there. We got Nintendo Twitter thing. Nintendo. We're at Nintendo Therapy on Twitter. And Nintendo Therapy on Reddit. Search that.
Or
And with
leave a comment below for wherever those end up.
yeah.
'Cause I still don't know.
And we'll be all back here next week for more best Nintendo game of the year picks and more bean machining.